You know, the Torah Parsha is picked for me, and this one is there's nobody sitting here that could not share about this because it's so incredibly straightforward. There's a lot to it in a sense, but it's very simple and very straightforward. Not anything difficult to figure out, and that's kind of neat if you ask me. Lily, can you fold that for me? Thank you, sweetheart. I was happy about this Torah Parsha because I have something to share with you a little later that dovetails right into it. The Torah Parsha, the reason why, if you're wondering, if you're here for the first time or the 101st time, you know, the children of Israel were commanded to read the Torah. And the Torah isn't old. You know, it's not old, it's timeless. And really, Yeshua, in the first century, the Jewish people called them HaTorah, the Torah. And that's consistent with John 1:1, where it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word took on flesh. Yeshua is the Torah with flesh on it. Not only is he the Torah, but he walked out the Torah perfectly. And it wasn't like he walked it out, you know, because he had to and then we don't have to. That wasn't the idea. You know, he was really modeling the perfect Son of God. He was showing us what it means to be a son or daughter of God and how we should conduct ourselves. And, you know, he's really our role model. He's not just, I mean, of course he is Lord and Savior, but he's other things too. And one of the things is he's a role model. And so if you saw this screen, the Parshas, the portions are broken up into 50 portions so that you can read the whole Torah in a year. You know, God didn't tell us that, but if he told you, I want you to read the Bible in a year, it would make sense to break it up so you can get that accomplished. That's all. And they broke this section up, Deuteronomy 11:26 to 16:17. So that's the whole portion for this week. And every Jew and not every Jew, forgive me, every religiously observant Jew. There are very few religiously observant Jews these days. But the religiously observant, they're going to focus on that Parsha for this week. And the way they get the titles, Re'eh, which means to see, the first word in the section. That's all. It's nothing more than that. They just had to title it, so that's what they used, the first word in the section. And if you go to Deuteronomy 11:26, you'll see the first word is see. We take a portion of the portion because nobody could comment on that. I mean, you know, if we did, then maybe we'd get to see the eastern sky open. So we just take a small portion. So let's look at the Torah Parsha that Mark just read and the portion that they gave us, okay, to look at. It's from Deuteronomy, so it falls in that whole portion, and it's 2 verses. And it says, rather, you must give to him, and you are not to be grudging when you give to him. If you do this, Adonai, your God, will bless you in all your work, in everything you undertake. For there will always be poor people in the land. That is why I'm giving you this order. You must open your hand to your poor and needy in your land. Now, rather is conjugative. It connects to something. So reading this, like reading all Scripture out of context, is lunacy. It's lunacy. There's no way you can understand the Word of God if you read out of context. It is impossible. And if you don't understand the Word of God, then you're not going to understand God. And if you take the Word of God out of context, you're going to take God out of context, which is what the believing community has done now. They've made God in their image. They don't know the Word of God. They really don't. At best, if they hear something, they go, oh, that's in the... They don't even know. If it's Old Testament and New Testament, no less the book, no less in context, it's insanity. I don't want to be difficult, but some of you haven't read your Bible in months. I don't even understand that. I don't. Let's put it in a little context, just a little bit of context, okay? If someone among you is needy, one of your brothers, in any of your towns, in your land, which I don't know is giving you, so they're entering in. They're entering in. They're going to be a whole new community. They've left Egypt. They've left the gods of Egypt, and now they're going into this whole new land, Israel, where God is going to strive with them. God's going to do his part, and they need to do their part. It's going to be a relationship. People say, well, it's all about relationship, not about religion. It was all about relationship back then. I mean, we think it's just about relationship through Yeshua, but God spoke to Moses face to face. When's the last time you had a face to face with God? It's always been about relationship. God has always wanted to relate to his people. Didn't he go into the garden with Adam in the cool of the day and relate with him? He's always been a God that wants to relate. He's always been a good father, always. It's nothing new. There is nothing new under the sun. So much of the Old Testament is in the New Testament, so much of it. As a believer, as a Christian, no matter what denomination, the Torah is still alive and well. The difference is they didn't have the power to walk it out. It's not that much different. You are not to harden your heart or shut your hand from giving to your needy brother. No. You must open your hand to him and lend him enough to meet his need and enable him to obtain what he wants. Let's continue. Guard yourself against allowing your heart to entertain the mean-spirited thought. Because the seventh year, the year of Shemitah, and we'll go over it, is at hand, you would be stingy towards your needy brother and not give him anything. For then he may cry out to Adonai against you, and it will be your sin. Rather, now here's the connection. So this is what you shouldn't do. Rather, you must give to him, and you are not to be grudging when you give to him. If you do this, Adonai your God will bless you in all your work and everything you undertake. Last verse. For there will always be poor people in the land. That is why I'm giving you this order. You must open your hand to your poor and needy brother in your land. Okay, what do we got to do? We got to break it down a little bit. Let's go to verses 7 through 9. And again, if someone among you is needy, one of your brothers. Now, I want you to see, at least it jumped out at me, that God is speaking to the Jewish people, and he's saying, if one of your brothers, not just anybody. This is a directive just to the Jewish people in the land. Yes, you can look up that word brothers and you'll see that I'm not making this up. It's not what we say, hey brother, today everybody's a brother, right? Thanks brother, thanks brother. Let him ask you for money and you'll see how he's not part of your family real quick. Thanks brother, brother. No, this was to the Jewish people. Now, I want you to know, you're supposed to take care of God first. Okay, that's where tithing came in. I don't want to get into it. I've never taught on it. I never will, between you and God. But it hasn't gone anywhere. That's first, and then you're supposed to take care of your family. Then you're supposed to take care of your congregational family. Then you're supposed to take care of the extended family, the rest of the believing community, and then the world. I'm letting everybody know that's listening, and there's probably thousands and thousands of people all around the world. Do not take something that you set aside and declare it to be Corban for the synagogue. God takes care of the synagogue. Take care of your family. I've never made a plea for money here and never will. We don't have to. If it's God's will, it's God's bill. If he tells Rabbi Greg to do something here, he will provide, whether you give to it or not. But you take care of your family. Listen to me. Take care of your family. So here was a directive to the brothers. Now, we read the same thing in 1 John 3:17. I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. I'll read it to you real quick. I don't have it on the screens. I just saw it just a few minutes ago. 1 John 3:17, it says, if someone has worldly possessions and sees his brother in need, that's just not anybody. That's his Christian brother, yet closes his heart against them, how can he be a loving God? So there's an order of things. I'm not saying to not take care of the world. You know me by now. I mean, I just, no. But there's something that's important here. When you see this year of Shemitah, Shemitah is just Hebrew for release. God gave directions that in the seventh year, anybody who had a debt was released. So what do you think a lot of people did? They had their hand out close to the seventh year. How many people do you know that claim bankruptcy? And what do? They know they're going to claim bankruptcy, so they run up their credit cards. Man, are you crazy? You think God's going to honor that? So even if they did that, even though all debts were canceled in the 7th year, this should not cause a person to refuse to lend money to a poor Israelite, even as the year of release drew near. To refuse is the sin that God's speaking about in verse 9. He's saying it's a sin. He's not saying it's bad. And he says you must give. He's not saying you're a good guy if you do. It's a commandment. And what happens when we break a commandment? It's a sin. And that's not just Torah, and that's just me. That's 1 John. Sin is lawlessness. It's a sin. I'm telling you, guys, I know personally, and I'm sure you do, a hard heart leads to a tight fist. You ever see somebody when they're having a coronary? I've been around. What happens? Their fists tighten up. A hard heart leads to a tight fist every day of the week. Let's look at the next verse. Verse 10. Rather, so he's making a contrast, you must give to him, you are not to give grudgingly. Okay, in this connection, the Jewish people have been known, deservedly well known for caring for their own. They do. They do. All the time. But not only for their own, but the world. Every time there's a catastrophe, who's first on the ground? Before the Red Cross, before the UN. Israel. The country is this big. It's the size of Metro Atlanta. How are they on the ground first? Before France, before Germany, before the United States. Because the Torah still lives in their hearts, even if they're secular. Still there. The Apostle Paul said the same thing. Nothing is new under the sun. He said the same thing that Moses said. You think he made stuff up? You think he was like, I'm going to go with a new Torah, the new and improved Torah. Look at 2 Corinthians 9:7. He said, each one should give according to what he decided in his heart, not grudgingly. It's the same words. God told Moses, tell them not to give grudgingly. He's saying the same thing. Why? Because Paul was Torah observant. He didn't convert. It is possible to give and not be happy about it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? We all know. It is also possible to give under pressure of emotional appeals or public embarrassment. Did you ever see me do it here? Honestly, I'm not trying to put a feather in my cap. I won't do that. You know how easy it would be for me to do that? You know how easy it would be for me to show starving children and pull upon you? I don't want that love. I don't want that money. I don't want it. I really don't. God doesn't want it. I don't like that. I don't like when people do that. So what's cheerful? Look at the word. Hilaros. It means joyous and prompt to do anything. Ready. A cheerful heart's ready, not just to give money, to give time, to give treasures, to give talents, to give. A cheerful heart gives. And what do we know about this word today, the Greek word, hilaros? We get the word in our language, hilarious. Hilarious. It means boisterously merry. It means jolly. It means rowdy. It means unrestrained joy. Imagine if the believing community served the Lord with unrestrained joy as opposed to our stupid little projects to put a name on ourselves. Well, I'm involved in this cause. Yeah, you're involved in it. You're getting the name. There's a quote by a wonderful theologian. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but if you're a Christian, you should have. Benjamin Jowett. Brilliant. And he gives a quote about this verse, 2 Corinthians 9:7. This is what he says, quote, cheerful giving is born of love, and therefore it is a lover loving a lover. A believer should be a lover loving God, who's a lover, and rejoicing in the communion. How much has God given you? Dude, he gave you his son. I'm not prepared to do that for anybody. No, I'm sorry. That's why he didn't call on me to do it. He says, giving is the language of loving. Indeed, it has no other speech. God so loved the world that he gave. Love finds its very life in giving itself away. I tell young people all the time, if you are dating somebody even remotely selfish, don't even consider marrying them. Because once you get married, it'll be worse. Because they're putting their best foot forward now that you're dating. Once they put a ring on it, they're going to just be on the couch saying, T. And I got news for you. If you're selfish and you're with a guy who's giving, don't mess up their life by marrying them. Has anybody under the age of 30 heard of Calvin Coolidge? Show of hands. All two of you. Beautiful. He was the 30th president of the United States of America, by the way. 1923, 1929. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant man. Had a beautiful presidency, but chose to be simple. So Calvin decides to go to church, and this is true, and he comes home, and his wife says to him, quote, "What did the minister speak about?" "Sin," Coolidge responded. "And what did he say?" "He was against it." When it comes to giving, what more remains to be said other than God is for it? I mean, anything more, I'd be beating a dead horse. What's the big commentary? So many of you were so caught up with studying. What are you studying so much? What are you praying so much about? I'll pray about it. I'll pray about it. Good. You pray about it. I'll get somebody to do it. And then you go before God and tell him how hard you prayed about it. In Hebrew, the word is tzedakah. You've heard of that? When the sacrificial system was destroyed by God, this is what I mentioned to some of the Orthodox people I spoke to, the rabbis, they meant well, but they scrambled. We don't have an Orthodox system anymore. We don't have a sacrificial system. What do? So they made up three things. They said tzedakah, teshuvah, and tefillah. Tefillah is prayer, and teshuvah is repentance, and tzedakah is giving. My question is always, look, it's a nice program, but how much? How much do I have to give in order to get a pass? Tzedakah, though, is not just giving. It comes from the Hebrew word tzedek, and it means justice. So from God's perspective, one who doesn't give is acting unjustly. How much, to who? I'm not going there. Nope. Sorry. That's between you and God. But man, when you're tight-fisted, you think you're going to be like this and go, "I love you, God." Yeah, and guess what? He can't open up your hand to put anything in it either. It's not just the Torah that speaks about this. Look, I love Proverbs more than any book in the Bible, bar none. Nothing has more wisdom than that book. Nothing. It has wisdom personified. And the beautiful thing about it is it can relate directly to you. The other parts of the Bible, you interpret it for what it says. Proverbs, if you read it, you'll get something out of it that I won't, because something's going on in your life or with your character that's different than going on with mine. It's an incredible, incredible, incredible book of wisdom. Nothing competes with it. Nothing. So take a look at some of these Proverbs. 14:31, it says, "The oppressor of the poor insults his maker, but he who is kind to the needy honors him," meaning honors God. Look at Proverbs 19:17. This is a scary one. "He who is kind to the poor is lending to the Lord, and he will repay him for his good deed." Proverbs 21:13. "Whoever stops up his ears at the cry of the poor will himself cry." Do we remember the rich man in Luke 16:19 through 31? In the afterlife, did he not cry out for relief? Was his cry answered? Silence. Got nothing. Proverbs 28:27. "He who gives to the poor will lack nothing, but he who hides his eyes will get cursed in plenty." Remember when you were watching TV 20, 30 years ago and you saw the kids from Biafra on TV? Yeah, changing the channel doesn't work for God. The man who closes his eyes to genuine cases of need will have multiplied sorrows. That's what God is saying. Don't you see what he set up? He set up a system so we would care about each other. I mean, I might have Jewish brothers, but my neighbor? What's neighbor in Hebrew? It goes back to Leviticus, ra'ah. It means friend, companion, another person. Just another person. And you could read more Proverbs, Proverbs 17:5 if you're taking notes, 22:9, 28:8, 29:7, 31:8 through 9. There's a ton of them. Tons. Okay, last verse in the Torah Parsha. This is interesting. Yeshua said the poor you'll always have among you, didn't he? What's he doing repeating Torah? You can't improve on the foundation of God's word. It's not going anywhere. There was always some antagonist that goes, but what about the part about stoning the kid? You think you're working for God at that point or working for Satan? That's something Satan would say. Satan would try to make the word of God and pollute it and dilute it. So when you're speaking that, guess who you're working for? In all of the history of Israel, no son was ever stoned. Why? Because God is good. Just like he didn't let Abraham put the knife through Isaac, he's good. But I'm telling you, some of these kids today, they might not need a stoning, but they need a good kick in the butt. Just, you know what I mean? At that coccyx. Right there. Right there. You know where it is. You've fallen on it before. Okay, it says here, for there will always be poor people in the land. Is that true? Yes. The poor people aren't going nowhere. They're always going to be there. This is why, because there'll always be poor people, how did God know? Foreknowledge. He knows everything. This is why, because there'll always be poor people, this is why I'm giving you this order. You must open your hand to the poor and the needy in your land. Okay, there will be always poor people among you. Why? 2 reasons. 2 reasons. One, partly as a punishment. Sometimes poverty is a punishment. Read the Bible. Yeah. Sometimes it's laziness. Thank you, stimulus. It's more like the anti-stimulus. Put people to sleep, not to work. But if you look in the Bible, now some of you might be struggling financially. You say, am I being cursed? Talk to God. Not me. Maybe that's your call, but sometimes it's not a blessing. If you read Deuteronomy 28, where it lists the blessings and the curses, and you read Leviticus 26 and the blessings and curses, you'll see it's under the cursings. But the other reason is partly to teach us compassion. Sometimes you could be a poor person that's not cursed just to see if somebody else will help you out. And that brings us to our New Testament Parsha. James 1, 26, 27. Anyone who thinks he is religiously observant, which is, we think well, I know a lot of people hate that word religion because you were at a church somewhere and every time somebody sneezed, religious spirit. Remember that, some of you? I don't know. I've only been in a Messianic synagogue. We don't do that because we feel we're religious, because the word is religous, to bind to something. And I'm religious in the fact that I'm bound to God. I don't have a problem with that word. Paul says in the New Testament, follow my religion. So just be careful about some of the nuttiness that you've been under and how you spew things. Generational curse. It's not a generational curse. You're cursed because you're an idiot. It's not a generational thing. Anyone who thinks he is religiously observant but does not control his tongue is deceiving himself, and his observance counts for nothing. The religious observance that God the Father considers pure and faultless is this: to take care of the orphans and the widows in their distress. Look, this guy lived with Yeshua because they had the same mom. In a way, they were kind of stepbrothers, but not exactly. I don't know if anybody really believed, in the family that she was impregnated by the Holy Spirit till maybe they saw Yeshua resurrected, because James sure didn't. He's like, look, Mom, I don't want to call you out on this, but give me a break. God got you pregnant? Think about it. Think about it. They weren't 2,000 years on the other side of this like we are. See, he didn't believe. He didn't believe till after the resurrection. But he lived with Yeshua. And when he became a believer, who do you think knew him better than James? Nobody. And he put this together. This is the Torah of the New Testament. There are 108 sentences in this little letter. 54 of those 108 sentences are commands right out of the Torah. So, James, what he's doing is he's contrasting, which is what the whole Bible does, right? The whole Bible is black and white. The whole Bible. It's so black and white. He's making a contrast. He's comparing useless religion with pure and faultless religion. And religion here means the external patterns of behavior connected with our religious belief. Belief is one thing, but we need behavior that goes along with that belief. We need character along with creed. Just not good enough to tell me what you believe. I'll just watch you and know what you believe. So outward forms rather than the inward spirit. What we do as opposed to what we believe. Look at James 1:26. We'll break it down. It's all we got, 2 left. Anyone who thinks he is religiously observant but does not control his tongue is deceiving himself, and observance counts for nothing. Look, a person, I was raised in it. I was observing. I was observant. I went to synagogue every Saturday. I think I was close to God. I went every Saturday. My parents wanted me to go. So I went. What was I supposed to do? Say no? I had to. It was part of my upbringing. We have a lot of kids that go to church every Sunday. And then they grow up and they have nothing to do with God. And you wonder, where did I go wrong? I don't know if you necessarily went wrong. They made a wrong choice. You did what you could do. Well, we didn't give them the best example. Your mom and me weren't. There's no excuse. Let me just give you a little news flash. Gandhi said, I would have believed in Jesus if I didn't meet so many Christians. Let him go before God and say that. And watch the chute open. Bye, Gandhi. I don't know about you, but my Bible says nobody's with an excuse. So whether it's my son or my daughter or your son or your daughter, they made a choice. Stop blaming yourself. You can't be held responsible. This Christian world is so nuts. Some woman's kid breaks the law, goes to jail, and they look at her like she's of the devil. It's a bad choice. I could make bad choices, and sometimes I do. It's choices that you make. And it comes from thinking that you have, not just beliefs. You're thinking. That's why it says renew your mind every day. So you can have a person that observes all kinds of religious ceremonies. And they appear pious. But James is saying he's deceiving himself. Because God is not satisfied with religious rituals. He's more interested in practicality. Practical, not theology. Not just doctrine. We can't just spew doctrine. Do you know how many of you spend way too much time studying the book of Revelation? What are you looking for? I don't understand. What are you looking for? It's going to, book of Revelation, it's going to get really, really, really bad, and then the knight shining armor comes and throws you on the steed, and you live happily ever after. Book of Revelation. What did those poor disciples do without the book of Revelation? They did terrible. In 6 months, they filled Jerusalem up with the gospel. When's the last time you filled up a city in 6 months? He's just giving one example of futile religion. It's not exhaustive. He's just saying that an unbridled tongue is futile religion. But it's not the only, it's not like, oh, so if I get my tongue, if I control my tongue, then I'm good. No, it's just one thing. Any behavior inconsistent with the faith is worthless. Any behavior. The story is told of a grocer who apparently was a pious fraud. He lived in an apartment above the store. If you've been to New York, you've seen a lot of these things, in the cities, especially like New York, there's a storefront, and then above the storefront is the owner's apartment. Every morning he would call down to his assistant, John, yes, sir. Have you watered down the milk? Yes, sir. Have you colored the butter? Yes, sir. Have you put chicory in the coffee? Yes, sir. Very well, come up for morning devotions. God is looking for practical godliness, which takes a compassionate interest in others. You know, when I came home, because we were in this small, first of all, you know, there's all concrete in this part of Long Beach. I was in the West End. The East End is the wealthier end. These are maybe 800, 1,000 foot, maybe square foot that we were in. Something like that would go for $700-800 easy. So small, concrete, old, nothing to look at. When I got to my house Thursday night, I opened up the door, I go, I fell to my knees. I'm living in a palace. It's palatial. I couldn't believe how big it was. I have an upstairs with bedrooms. Not one bathroom, not two, 3 bathrooms. Couldn't believe it. I looked in the backyard. I got a backyard with grass and trees, and man, we are so crazy blessed. And it's not enough. What if we put on an addition? What are you playing, hide and go seek? What are you doing? God wants us to take a compassionate interest in others and to keep our own life clean. Sometimes I wonder, you know, look, this is so hard for me. I almost wish that God spoke to me and said, you're done. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm telling you, I promise you, the accolades I get and the letters I get, I almost can't read them anymore. I'm not that guy. I fight every day with things. I'm so far from having arrived. I fight. The enemy is constantly trying to speak to me and tempt me, constantly. And I fight. I'm not there. I'm not there. God uses me. God uses bums. Look at verse 27. The religious observance that God the Father considers pure and faultless is this. And this is right to the heart of it. And you could read this in Psalm 146 and so many other Psalms. To care for orphans. Orphans. Look at the way you raised your kids. You send them to private schools. You put on the finest clothes. You took them on vacation. These are kids without parents. Who's going to care for them? Widows. In other societies, when a woman loses a husband, she doesn't remarry. It's not like here in America. They don't remarry. It's just a disrespect to their deceased husband. My mom had such a hard time. People saying, you need to date. She would say to me, my son, how am I going to date? Who'll be like your father? Take care of orphans, and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being contaminated by the world. So James gives an example and praises this guy. He praises this man who visits needy orphans and widows and who keeps himself undefiled from the world. I don't know. I read this, when I first started reading the Bible, and I thought this would be great. It'd be great to take care of widows and orphans. And I tried it at Beth Judah, and I didn't have any, forgive me if you're watching, maybe some of you weren't like this, but I just didn't feel like there was any backing to do it. There was no excitement. And then I came here, and I wanted to do it so bad. I was like, God, this is insane. So I'm just going to talk to believers? And then you sent me to Macon, Gentile Central, where I'm going to give them some, explain to them that they're Jewish Christians, that they're not just Christians, that Jesus' last name wasn't Christ, that he was a Jew, is a Jew, and always will be a Jew. Is this what I'm supposed to do? Just Judaize them? I don't want to do that. Most of them aren't going to like it anyway. I said, I'll do that because that's what you've called me to Macon for, but can I have that too? And he just made it happen. He just sent us out to little villages, obscure villages that people in the area don't know exist. People in Israel never heard of Neve Michael. They never even heard of it. You talk to rabbis, I never heard of it. Pardasana, never heard of it. You think anybody heard of these villages in southeast India? These 1,000 villages where there's no running water and mud huts? You think people know in North India that they exist? No. No. The new birth is found in acts of grace and works of separation. That's what James is saying. Let me show you some pictures I received while I was away. It just came at a perfect time. Look, these kids, not these kids, because this is already 2009 we started this. But these kids are the kids that were orphans. Either their parents died of AIDS, they were playing. I saw them. I went to the slum. Hold on one second, go back to that picture. I went to the slum. I saw them naked, playing in sewage water. I saw the excrement, the smell. Most people couldn't handle the smell. Look at what God has done. Stephen, our leader, is to the left. He had a little Bible study in his village. He's known not just in Kenya, he's known in Nigeria. He's known in Ghana. Look at what God has done with somebody who is willing. Look at these caps and gowns. They have hope. Look at this kid in the next picture. Look how happy. A diploma. If some of our American kids understood that even though they have a free education, it costs somebody something. Yeah, it costs taxpayers money. Apply yourself. It's not a problem with the school, it's a problem with your culture. I was raised in the hood of hoods. All my friends are dead from either overdosing or bank robbing. My father's voice was in my head. And it said, make something of yourself, kid. I never had a chance. Apply yourself. Go to school. And I wanted to honor him. Well, what do we do about the fatherless society? Make a good choice. Let's look at a couple others. One more, I think. It's growing. I mean, and then what do we have? This is, I asked him to get some plans. I would like to build them a school. Now, time. This is not a plea for money. Know this. I don't send in a check. We're covered. God's already covered it. This is not a plea. Don't send a check. This is for the future school. No, we're okay. All right, let's go. Listen, 2009, he's sitting on his hands. Now he's like a leader of leaders. They call him to come speak. He's a big deal. Not that he needs to be a big deal and he could care less about being a big deal, but look at how God raised him up. It's crazy. And just not to leave the women out because I don't want to hear from them, you know. All right, I think next we have pictures from Ethiopia. Look, I was there, man. I watched girls with 40-pound containers on their back going hunchbacked with a rope, hunchback, walking like this up a mountain. And the water wasn't even clean. They got clean water now. You can't exist without clean water. That's our second one, and I hope that we have at least 3 more. And last, India. These are pictures I just got while I was away. Here they are praying for food, and let's go to the next one. There's the chickens. They don't look. Guys, these people don't know from chickens. They eat rice, not even basmati rice. You guys get good rice. They get rice stripped of every nutrient. They can't even afford basmati rice, so they work in the fields and they give them the junk. They work in the fields 14 hours a day for a couple of bucks. Imagine eating bad rice all the time. Some of you saying, "Oh, Mom, I had that yet. We had Italian again." Invite me over to your house when your kid says that. I mean, they've fed hundreds of thousands of starving people. Not just people that, there's nothing, starving because of COVID and because of poverty. And that's what's going on in India. So one last thing I got to read. You know our connection with our miracle mission. I got this while I was away too. Dear Rabbi Greg, we saw a need at several hospitals and agencies for custom-fitted wheelchairs. You know all about this, right, for the physically handicapped. They cannot, people say, can I send a wheelchair? No, a regular wheelchair won't work. They're frozen, so they need a special wheelchair. These wheelchairs in the medical profession, forgive me if you're in the medical profession, but they cost $10,000, okay? We manufacture them through the prison system in Iowa for $500. How's that for a markup? That's, just as a side note, that's criminal, and you'll have to answer for it. $500. So we got them wheelchairs. These are kids that have never left their hospital bed. Maybe they became that way because they nearly drowned in a pool and, they were underwater for too long, but never left the bed. Not only did the wheelchairs, but the iPads, they're able to communicate. Can you imagine? Just imagine you're a woman who's visited your son in the hospital for 13 years, and now you hear for the first time him say, Mommy, thank you for visiting me all this time. I love you. So we created the wheelchair mission and supplied 1,000 wheelchairs. 1,000. It was our pleasure to share with you the many heartwarming emotional letters we received from families and agencies. Our special wheelchairs enable many children to go outside their hospital rooms for the very first time in their lives. Today, we got involved in the government. Today, the government is supplying the wheelchairs, so our wheelchair mission has been accomplished. We first established our iPad and tablet mission to provide children with mental challenges so they could learn how to communicate. Then came COVID, which required all children be confined to their homes and agencies with no access to their school computers. We provided approximately 700 iPads, the agencies enabling their children to continue their education. We received many stories from parents thanking us for providing their child with an iPad. For many, it was the very first time they were able to communicate with their child. Today, the children have returned to schools and hospitals. Mission accomplished. This is what Bill wrote. It's signed by Bill, who is the founder and president of Foster Foundation, my buddy. And he sent this to every Orthodox agency. They're all Orthodox agencies, except for the Bethlehem Rehabilitation, which is, an Arab agency, because we want to help children. My Bible doesn't say that they should just be believing children. What do they know? They're hurt. We'll help them. He writes, none of these missions could have been accomplished without your generous support and the partnership we were blessed to establish with Rabbi Greg and Congregation Beth Yeshua. They provided half of all the costs for everything. How did we pull this off? How did we pull any of this off? It's crazy. There's congregations so much bigger than us who aren't doing squat except building things to little kids so they could feel like they're on a cruise ship. Give them more stuff. More significantly, this was not the normal partnership between a foundation and a synagogue. Our partnership was between a foundation and Rabbi Greg Hershberg, a Messianic rabbi, and his congregation Beth Yeshua and their thousands of followers. Thank you again for your commitment, dedication. You know what this is like when a guy like this, who is a former vice president, of the International Conservative Synagogue Movement worldwide, he knows every synagogue there is, and he's telling these Orthodox people, Beth Yeshua. House of Jesus. God works in so many different ways. There's so many layers. You think, well, this is what he's doing. Then you think, no, it's mutually beneficial. He's blessing you and me. You have no idea what he's doing. He's doing so many different things with so many different people at so many different times. Leave it alone. Just do what you're told. Leave it alone. You don't have to know so much. Why do you have to know so much? Who died and left you, boss? Who are you? You're a nobody. I'm a nobody. We're not important. The glory of God is important. You're just not that important. What if I lose my rabbi? What if I lose my surgeon? What if I lose my wife? People lose rabbis, they get a new one. People lose surgeons, they get a new one. They lose wives. Sometimes they get a new one a little too soon, but they get a new one. This is the way I would like to end it. It ends on a note of, I'm very included in this. Maybe, just maybe, we should put our own faith on trial. I hate to do this to you. We should have just left with the pictures. But I just got a few questions for you. One, do I read my Bible with a humble desire to have God rebuke me, teach me, and change me? Or do I read my Bible so I have ammunition for my next argument? That's just an add-on. Two, am I anxious to have my tongue bridled? Or do I have to prove my point constantly and show that I'm right? Three, do I justify my temper? Well, the reason was, what happened was, if that didn't, or do I want victory over it? Four, how do I react when someone tells an off-color joke? Your facial expression already told me. Five, does my faith manifest itself in deeds of kindness to those who can't repay me? Do you know how many times Bill has asked me, do you want your name? Do you want your name? Do you want your name? What do I need a name? Rabbi Greg Hershberg on a plaque. Don't you think God knows what I'm doing and what I'm not doing? Is it going to matter? Everything we do, God knows. And if you want to talk about grace and mercy, let me repeat, everything we do, God knows. I wouldn't push it too much. God was very patient when he judged Israel and they went into exile in 567. But that didn't happen overnight. Isaiah started speaking to them back in 750 BC. It's at a place now where the world is so absolutely wacky, doing things that are absolutely unheard of, unprecedented, and boasting about them. But the sad part is, it's infiltrating the believing community every which way, and they're buying into it. And right, you're going to be narrow and uptight and weird, and people aren't going to like you. So, like the wise man once said, so? There was a song that was written in 1996. I think it applies today. Let me just throw the chorus up there for you. You familiar with this? There was a guy in his car, Espinosa, not all that well known, just a worship leader was in his car, and he realized, man, something's got to give. Things, people think, well, it changed with COVID, and it changed with the Obama administration, and it changed with the me generation of the 60s. And guys, this has been going on since the garden. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. It's been spiraling down. It's spiraling down faster. It's going to ramp up very soon. Next 12 to 18 months, it's going to ramp up. And for you that are putting a smirk on your face, nobody's ready for it. Nobody is ready for it. You're going to have to trust God and hold on to God with everything you have. And it's going to feel like, all of a sudden, it's going to feel like overnight. But it's been building. Nobody gains 50 pounds overnight. It's been building and building and building. But you're not going to stop it. I was at Niagara Falls, and there's a point where if you get into the river, the Niagara River, you are going over the falls. This world is going over the falls. You don't have to go over the falls with it. Daniel was in Babylon, one of the most detestable empires that ever existed. He faced Jerusalem 3 times a day. And he wasn't trying to win everybody over. Didn't he say to Nebuchadnezzar, no offense, I can't do this. Be careful how much time you spend trying to win people over, because in the process, you might lose yourself. I'm a witnessing fool, but you don't have to make every Canaanite an Israelite. If you're an Israelite, just be careful not to become a Canaanite. Let's stand up together. You sure you wanted me back? Okay. Aw. Don't go changing to try to please me. Billy Joel's from New York. What can I tell you? I know a lot of people going through a lot of stuff, man. You know, a lot of people, this internet thing is crap. It caused us to be antisocial. Anybody can get along texting, you know? It's like communicating with a billboard. It just doesn't work. It's not really social. It's antisocial. It's putting so much pressure on these little kids to have friends and likes and subscribes. It's absolutely insanity. They're so depressed, it's pathetic. I've never seen so many depressed young people in all my life on antidepressants. It's crazy, right? If some of you are on, or your kids, I'm just saying it's out of control. We're letting it get to us. You know, COVID, and should I do, and should I not do, and the vaccine is the mark, and it's not the mark, and what if I don't take it? These many died, and that many died, and maybe, and 95% in the hospital right now that are dying from COVID haven't been vaccinated. Should I get that? Look, just relax. You know, you're like, seriously, man. Some of your like guardian angels are just like, give me another. Lighten up. It's not the first time things went sideways. God's got this. He's got you. Even if you think he doesn't, that's because, you know why you might think that? Because you put too much onus on yourself. You've tried to control this thing for too long. Let go. Let God do what only he could do. Let him be God. Just let him be God. Let him run with it. Just follow the cloud. I know it's not so easy. It's not easy for me. Guys, it's not easy for me. It's not like but I don't want to go out like that. I don't want to go out so afraid of everything. I don't want to do that. It's stifling. And it's not life-giving. It's life-taking. And you don't have life. It has you. And it becomes imprisoning. It's crazy. People are afraid to talk to people because of this. A person coughs and you want to choke them out. He just has a little something. And now there's variants. And now people that have gotten the vaccine are getting COVID too. And if some knucklehead gave them ivermectin or hydrochloroquine with vitamin D, guess what? They'd probably be okay. But no, put them on a freaking respirator and shut down their system and let them drop dead so they could sell another one. Satan is behind all of it. Don't you give him the victory. Follow God and slap him. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of the Prince of all peace, Yeshua. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'hunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. I love you guys, and I really mean it this time.